Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another episode of Talking That Talk Official Podcast. I am your host, Juice, aka Ignoring There, brother, where we have comfortable and uncomfortable conversations. My fault, I forgot to say the little thing.
Cool, cool. Hey, welcome back to your favorite podcast. I go by the name of King Exodus, aka X. We appreciate everybody for tapping in. We ask that you subscribe to the YouTube channel, Talking That Talk Official Podcast. Follow us on Instagram. So tonight's episode, we're gonna talk about compromising, right? The art behind compromising, certain situations where there's pros and cons to it. We're just gonna tap in. We're gonna talk about different type of relationships, different type of situations. We can tap into like the parental space, all areas where people either find compromise as being negative and or positive. So kicking it off, the first area I could tackle is masculinity, manhood. I've heard a lot of people say that men should never compromise. Um, do I personally agree with the concept that men should never compromise? I don't. I feel like your manhood develops further, right, when you are put into situations where the right compromises are made. This is evolution. This is how you grow. This is how you evolve, right? So what I noticed is a lot of people, when it comes to masculinity, sometimes tie things into their uh, moral system that doesn't really belong. Like spirituality and religion gives you a foundation to who you are, but that's not who you are. You feel me? That's just a foundation to give you principles to live by. But it don't mean that you can't find other good principles to live by outside of those systems and that are set up, right? So a lot of people will not compromise on quote unquote their belief systems. They will tie that into their masculinity, right? Um, you have different type of relationships that men get into where if they feel as though they compromise, whether it's with a woman, they feel like that's a weakness, right? Instead of seeing the growth behind certain types of compromises. So as long as your morals are intact and your integrity is intact, if other things on a table to be compromised, and it's for the improvement of not just yourself, but your family, your group, whoever, your business aspirations, whatever the case be, compromising to me and those type of situations are about evolving and growing, right? So I'll just start it off there. I'll let you tap into the whole concept of do you believe men should compromise and tie it into masculinity?
Oh, sure. The way I was raised, men shouldn't compromise, but at the same time, it's all about what you're compromising for. Like I said, it's always a good give or take situation, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? A lot of people don't understand when it comes to compromisation. People will always use it. It is in the definition, it is to settle upon agreement, right? But you always make an agreement work for you at the same time. We
Mm-hmm.
have scenarios where individuals might be negotiating on a business term, right? Hey, look, for exchange of this amount of equity, I want this amount of profits, I want this amount of, they're exchanging. That's a compromising situation agreement, right? Hey, I won't give you 50-50, I'll give you 40 something. Like these are like situations where you have to understand when you need to compromise. Um, that's business wise as a man. It depends on the levels of what's going on in your life on what you should compromise, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, for instance, I'm not gonna lie. If you can get 7 to 8 out of 10 of the things you want in a woman, I would stop right there. I'm not gonna lie to you, man. I already came to the conclusion, bro. If I can get at least 7, like what, 7 out of 10 is 70%. That's still a passing grade, baby. If I can at least get that, I can roll with it, right? But I still believe in the non-negotiables at the same time when engaging in a relationship. So as a man, you got to be able to pick what you're going to compromise, right? If it's going to affect your characters or your character, your morality, that's not something I'm going to compromise. I'm not going to lie. You can't pay me a certain amount of money to do something that's going to make my character have a stain on it or my image or something like that that I take to heart. It's all about understanding what are you compromising. Don't ever make it seem like what you're doing when you compromise a man is dictating or it's self-sabotaging you. You got to understand the negotiation process, right? Um, for instance, you have some women that might be like, "Hey, look, I want this house, but you know what? I can take this." She's willing to compromise for you. You know what I'm saying? It's the smallest things that you can do at the same time, or like man, I can go on forever with that, just alone on a relationship level. But as a man, you should be able to come to a standard and something that's negotiable, right? To say you'll never compromise is also it also puts you in a downward spiral if you never achieve anything. Imagine you're not compromising, but you don't achieve. That shit is stupid. So, I mean, that's just my little foot like that.
Right. And just adding to that a little bit more, for these type of relationship spaces when it come down to men, let's say you have a system in place. I get up at this time, I do this. This is how my day is archetyped. You get into a relationship. A woman may be able to tweak certain things within that routine that maybe you may not see that can be better for you. You feel me?
Right.
So it's like you have to allow people to edify you at the same time. If growth and development are the main objectives, then that means that edifying is always going to happen, right? The same system that you have today, I'm pretty sure it wasn't the same system that you had 6 months ago, a year ago. You have to continue to adapt. And I think that's the problem. People feel like within this whole masculinity thing and manhood, that if you give in, you're weak. But sometimes giving in brings about much more fruits. You feel me? So you have to keep that in mind. I guess I could take it to a family perspective, right? Raising a family is good to have structure. It's good to have things set into play. But at the same time, what tends to happen is while you're producing a family, you also have to allow room for growth and edification, which means that we may be wrong. I'm not going to say wrong, but we may have missed out on some things that we should implement within our family structures. So a lot of people just feel like, hey, I got the magic blueprint and we're going to stick to this blueprint no matter what. A lot of times those people don't succeed. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. It's a 50-50, it's a hit and miss. But like I said, if the main objectives are longevity, success, happiness, then that means within building that family structure, compromising is always going to be on the table. Example, let's say I'm pro-black, I don't believe in weave and all that stuff. I have a daughter. Hey, look, you ain't gonna never wear weave. You ain't gonna never wear makeup. You ain't gonna never do these things because it's against my morals. It's against my beliefs. Well, you arise in a situation. Your daughter, you know what I'm saying, is drawn to these type of things. Okay, cool. There are pros and cons to sometimes wearing weave, giving your hair a break, et cetera, et cetera. But sometimes in those spaces, you can allow your children not to be able to fully express themselves or never express themselves, right? So they can bottle in all that shit and be resentful towards your structure and rebel 10 times harder. So it's like at each level within that family structure, you actually have to listen to your family members, the people that's within your house. The blueprint shouldn't just be locked in no matter what. And I think that's a false narrative that they give a lot of men in the whole family structure scenario, right? So that's my example.
So you're saying men shouldn't stick to a certain path, like being straight and narrow?
Um, like I say, by the example, if my morals, quote unquote, a lot of people would mix that into their morals. Your belief system, it has something to do with your morals, but it's not your morals 100%. That's
Correct.
just your preference of choice. You feel me? So like I said, if I have a daughter, I'm not with the whole weave shit. I can't say throughout the whole time she's under my roof, she can never wear weave. You know what I'm saying? Sometimes it's going to make sense. Sometimes it's not going to make sense. But at the same time, you can cripple that person from experiencing things and gaining their own perspectives. Then you're going to have a bunch of people like robots around your fucking house that you're trying to program to think like you 100% of the time. So sometimes what you think is working for you and working for others, it also can be the very things that's working against you. So, yeah.
I mean, yeah, okay, okay. Well, like I said, some things you should be able to compromise as an individual.
Mhm.
What was you touching up on within your second statement, so I could make sure I touch upon whatever.
Um, how do you feel about compromising within the family structure? Being a man, what are things that you probably wouldn't compromise? What are things that you could compromise just within the family structure?
Man, I can't name anything off tops, but I
Mhm.
do believe, not gonna lie, like I tell people that's get involved with me right now, it's like, look, um, you will be heard, but that doesn't mean the decision will be made at the same time. I'm one of those people who like to siphon like what's the correct plan of action, but at the same time, I still believe in like, hey, listen, letting somebody have leeway at the same time, right? If everything's 100% your direction, sometimes you don't even know if if somebody has a better option for you because you'll never take it because you always think you're right. Um, so learn how to take your foot off the gas. That's important as well, right? Sometimes I
Mhm.
get my head down so much, um, I forget some of the smallest details that somebody might be able to pick up for me, right?
Mhm.
Because I'm just laser focused on something else. So the family structure, like I said, I always talk about non-negotiables. What's something I can compromise? Um, I don't know. You have to throw something random out for me.
Like I say, it could be something simple. Like, okay, put it like this. Some people, like my introduction to something simple as religion. Most of us was abused into that shit. You ain't had no choice. You had to go to church. You had to read this book. You had to live this lifestyle. You had no options. You know what I mean? There were certain things growing up that you just had to do no matter what. Some things were for the better. Some things wasn't. If you was forced to cook and clean and you know what I'm saying, work around the house, that's a good thing, right? I don't think you should compromise on something like that because that's
Okay.
giving that person character. But when it comes down to like things that they want to experience, things they may not actually, you know what I'm saying, resonate with them, is that, you know what I'm saying? Some people, like I say, they don't allow
Like holidays for one, yeah.
holidays. Some people don't allow their kids to dress a certain way no matter what, no matter, you know what I'm saying,
Man,
what they're
I'm not
going
gonna
through.
lie to you, brother. I literally
Mm,
had a conversation about that in my head.
mm,
I said, look, as long as my daughter is who she is, until 18, look, I'm gonna want you to cover your stomach, but like, hey, when you hit that marker, you're on your
mm,
own, you graduate. Look, I can
mm,
only, you know what I'm saying? This is the thing, like, to still try to, how can you say it? Fuck it, I can say it. Sometimes to still try to cage your kids when they're
mm,
grown, that's
mm.
where big resentment happens.
Right.
I should only guide you to a certain extent to a point where,
Mm,
look, after this age, like at this age, you're really responsible on your own. This is
right.
literally free will that you have, right?
Right.
You have the free will, like they say, sometimes you have the free will within the house structure, or sometimes the free will is only given to you outside of the house structure,
Mm,
right? You know what I'm saying? That's why some people, when they come get older, you know what I'm saying, they might come in the house and might not think of certain nature, like to speak to everybody. They're like, oh, well, shoot, my bad, I'm just coming in. Like, I used to stay here. But it's
mm.
still instilled within the people that when you used to stay there, you would speak to everybody, you would engage them a certain type of way. But at the same, kind of rambling, but I think you pick up what I'm saying.
Yeah, yeah, for sure, for sure. Okay, cool, cool.
Yeah, like I said, I know dress code wise. I like, look, until she about 18, graduate high school, nah, all your shirts need to come. I don't want to see no belly button.
Belly
You know
button.
what I'm saying? I don't want to see none of that.
Cool, cool. All right. Um, I think interesting point we can tackle is friendships, just pure friendships, right? Um, some people don't compromise in those relationships, right? Let's say you got a friend, you feel as though you don't agree with something they're doing in their personal life, right? Some people feel like they're compromising their own integrity of some sort by not allowing that person to live their life the way they choose and live their life. So since I don't agree with the way you live in your life on every single level, right? I'm gonna be combative within this friendship. Feel me? Like it's not up to me to make decisions for you to live by. That's your choice, right?
Right.
Me having a friendship with you, it's not to dictate your life. Feel me? So a lot of people don't allow their friends to make their own choices, right or wrong.
Mm.
Um, some
Got
people
the floor,
have a
brother.
hard time admitting when they're wrong in situations with friendships, right? So it fucks up the ability for us to compromise within this relationship because people aren't being honest. People not putting everything on the table. Then sometimes people have this direct energy to where they feel like as though they have to speak their mind 100% of the times within their relationships, right? I feel like that's something that's compromisable, that we can compromise on it. Because if being so direct and being 100% with, let's say, the right person at the wrong time can crush that foundation or crush that relationship, is it really worth it to just speak your mind? Some people feel like they can never just shut up. They can't just hold some shit in. Feel me? So these are things that I noticed that destroyed a lot of friendships when it comes to compromising. Some people don't know how to deal with people based on who they are. You have to logically see things the way I see it. That's not gonna happen. You
No,
know
no.
what I'm saying? You have to move the way I think you should, the way I think you should move. That's not gonna happen. So we can't base right or wrong based on our own perceptions within friendships. It has to be an open space, and I think that's the importance of compromising. If I know you got less discipline than me within the friendship, let's say we're working on a task together or whatever the case is, I can't hold you to the same standards that I would hold myself to
Mm,
because I'm seeing this relationship only through my eyesight.
mm.
So that's why I got on the friendship issue.
Oh man, that compromising with friendships, man. I had a situation not too long ago.
Mm,
I mean, I talked to this friend. This friend was just, basically said like, "Look, can I stay with you for a little bit?" And I was like, "You know what? I can't do it." Just always straight up, I can't do it. And then it was like, wow. I gotta be honest. You never had structure, bro, and that's gonna fuck me up bad. And it's gonna fuck me up bad. Like you trying to like, as you say, like, but when you have lived your life so much on a free will experience, while other people were structuring their life, you understand why some people have maintained a better lifestyle than other individuals. I'm sorry, bro. And people feel like, okay, because they have been doing that with other individuals so much of their life, asking for a place to stay or, what I'm saying, move in with other people. Like, I don't know if you ever met people who always just moved in with people. I don't know if you ever met people like that, bro. Whether it's a relationship, a friendship, a situationship, they always move in with people they never had their own.
mm,
So when you seem like the straight, like I said, the free will type of lifestyle, free life, whatever you want to call it, when there's no structure, it'll fuck with you trying to have somebody in your lifestyle, right? While they're still talking about, peace, harmony, let's, life is light, they'll say all the right shit, but then when you look at it, be like, I don't even think you live by this shit, man. I just think you talk. And you know what I'm saying? I remember I bumped heads with one of my homegirls before, and she was like, we had a situation. We were just talking about relationships, right? She was talking about men, and during that process of the relationship, she was like, "Oh man, some of you men don't do this and do that." I said, "You know what's amazing to me?" And she was like, "What?" I said, "How is it that you're such a prosperity preaching type of woman to other women when it comes to empowerment, but every relationship I've known you to be, you always got in physical altercations with men?" I said, "Why is it that the person you abuse, you end up having a child by?" You know what I'm saying? I was just like, bro, like we got to keep it honest on a lot of levels, but people don't look at that at the same time. We can hold other individuals to a high accountability, but if I preach to you a better life that I'm not even living, then it's like, bro, no, like, see, you might not like the way I am because I'm structured, but it works for me. That's another thing. We gotta realize what works for me, it works for you, and it doesn't work for them. That's one of the things when it comes to friendships at the same time. But I like having friends that we don't all agree. I like having like situations where I might bump hands with a friend, um, but we'll call each other the next day and be like, all right, bro, you was right. Like we do stuff like that. You know what I'm saying? If it's a situation that's in person, we make sure we don't leave on a level where we're pissed off. We shake hands, go about our
mm,
day like men,
mm.
and that's how we make things work amongst us. But yeah, I also say like be careful when compromising friendships because people will take advantage of that. Because you have some individuals who really feel like they're the star of the relationship to a
Mm.
point you should bend at their will. Right? When anytime you have a person, there's always two different types of individuals. You have people who are at a higher status who want to bring you along, and then you have other people at a higher status who are looking at you like, look, you're going to have to prove yourself to me. Right? I tell you all the time when I'm with certain individuals, they be like, "Hey, look, I want to introduce you to certain people, but look, it's politics. I'm gonna need you to dress a certain way." I don't get mad. I be like, "Okay, I understand the game." You know what I'm saying?
Cool. And even in those type of relationships, your peace of mind and your energy is shit you should never compromise.
And
You know what I'm saying? A lot of people have these types of blind loyalty to these type of relationships, and no matter what they come through, they feel compelled to always give 100%, right? but relationships are based on give and take.
Mm-hmm.
And that's on the energetic level. That's on things that's tangible. You know what I mean? That's on both levels. So within these type of spaces, protect your energy, protect your peace of mind. Those are things you should never compromise. Once you lose those things, you lose yourself. Once you lose yourself, the people that you're compromising this shit for, what can they do for you? Nothing, right? They can't help you build something up that you had to compromise in order to keep them around. So you have to be able to navigate people in and out your life based on those things alone. Your peace of mind, your energy. You know what I mean? Have relationships that add to you. But then a lot of people feel like every relationship has to be within the same particular space. Like you're gonna have friends for different things. You're gonna have friends that if you want to just hang out and have a good time, boom, I know who to call. If I got somebody I want to have an intellectual conversation with, boom, I know who to call. If I got somebody I need to make money with, I know who to call. That doesn't mean that nothing's being compromised here because you're winning within each relationship based on what you're getting and what you adding at the same time.
Right.
So, yeah.
Law 33%, baby. I told you, man. That
Mhm.
that thing's a real thing, right? Now I like how you said that because you have a lot of individuals that'll be like, man. I remember one time I was watching this thing on it was like a quick like reel on Instagram. They were like,
Mhm.
if you can't borrow $10,000 from your friends, you're in the wrong friendship. I was like, what kind of stupid shit is that? I was like,
That
yo, what
sounds
kind of
like.
stupid shit is that?
That
You know
sounds
what I'm
like.
saying? But see, you know what I'm saying? Everybody projects higher up in your friendships. Like the more you grow, then your friendships will grow. I'm a believer of that too. But I'm never gonna tell myself because a friend can't borrow. I mean, I can't borrow 10,000 from one of my friends that we
Yeah.
shouldn't be friends. You know what I'm saying? I always say, look, bro. At the end of the day, the system's in place. You're gonna have business owners. You're gonna have investors. You're gonna have employees. You're gonna have self-employed. That's literally it.
Right.
Unless you're just gonna live off the land. And guess what? If you don't have enough employees, you can't be a fucking business owner, dumbass. So I don't
That
know
part.
what you get like people don't actually think how it really works. You know what I'm
Mhm.
saying? So the talk about being your own boss, you know what I'm saying? I've seen people like, yo, I'd rather work, for myself and make 50K a year than make 100K working for somebody else. I'm like, cool, remember, hey, works for you, works for you. But at the same time, that person that's still making 100K within X amount of time, if you're making 50K 5 years, I'm making 100K for 5 years.
Mhm.
When it's time for me to branch off, I'm probably going to execute way better just because I have more resources behind me. But at the same time, I can also look at a person making 50K and other individuals that reach out to them like, hey, you're a business owner. Like, hey, look, they got small business. It's how you network, man. I just got a new contact today within the logistics industry. Man, I was talking to this woman about like 30 minutes, man. I forgot I had the podcast today. I mean, I was gonna be late. And we were just sitting there talking about how the industry's running, how to get things moving. But it took for me to open my mouth up for another relationship to build. Right? She told me I do tax preparations, I do logistics, I do this. I said, hey, look, I got some friends downtown. They do this, a couple government contracts that I've been coming across, like working. You know what I'm saying? We're just working and talking at the same time. You know, I asked to shadow her on our days off. It's the smallest things you do to expand your relationships, right? I don't know if this person will be a friend or a business partner, or just a small acquaintance, but from that relationship, something is formed.
Right. Man, one thing you said that caught my attention is you said in certain friendships, relationships, some people want to be the star of the relationship.
Right.
One of the biggest things that touched me was Earn Your Leisure.
Mm-hmm.
Um, we see uh, the two guys who started the podcast, and we see Ian Dunlap.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought that it was all three, right? I thought that was their shit.
Right.
They interviewed Ian Dunlap about 2 years ago. And after that interview, they added him to the podcast. It didn't start off with those three. I said, yo, that's some shit. Like I can compromise my spotlight. If I see you are a good piece to the puzzle, boom, implement it. A lot of people cannot do that. A lot of people
Right.
feel like if they start a business off one way, then this is how it's going to finish. It's going to stay that way, especially within the podcast space or where the spotlights and cameras are on. So I love that business model. And then the network continues to grow, right?
Mm-hmm.
Different collaborations continue to take place, and no one's fighting for the spotlight. No one's fighting for the camera. Being able to coexist is part of compromising because
Yes, that's a big compromising thing.
you're compromising your energy and what you have to give off your spotlight at the same time for the bigger objective of the collective. And that's how people should move. You
Right.
benefit more that way, right? And Marlon Wayans said some dope shit one time. He was like, look, what I noticed with black people in business is once we come to a disagreement, we can't do business no more. Other groups don't rock like that. Cool. We don't agree on these type of things. We're still going to compromise to build this business or still work together. We don't have to agree on everything.
Right.
That's not logically possible to only do business with people that you agree 100% with everything on, and there's no disagreements involved of any kind. But once again, remember, peace of mind, energy. Remember those two things. Hey, and shit, sometimes people will compromise those two things if the check right. Let's keep it on.
What your character and morality, man.
Tangibles, non-tangibles. Right.
It hits everybody different. So even on the basis you was talking about, I always tell people, look, bro, building a team, you're gonna need to be able to duplicate yourself for one. You can't duplicate, you can't scale. I'm sorry, bro. You're not gonna do shit, bro. You're not gonna do anything at all. You know what I'm saying? Unless everything's just automated, and still, even then, you still got to reach out to other individuals because you might not know how to talk that talk when it comes to communicate with people, right? I always think I could go. I always think I could go into relationships with a positive mind, an open mind frame, and be like, "Yo, what's going on? My name is Jonathan Fowler." Da, 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 da. Yo, sometimes that works, and sometimes I get tested, and sometimes I stand my ground, right? I mean, one time I was at a bar, like I said, sometimes I'll be on my lone wolf shit. And conversation started, so I get to heat it up. And they were like, all right, bro, what can we agree on? Person's like, we can read these women right here look good. I started like, everything like, we can like, everything like.
Gotta find something.
So, one of the bartenders there was like, that was smooth. And she was like, let me introduce you to somebody. It ended up being the owner. So, you know what I'm saying? It could be the things on how you can come to a solution. That, like, even come to a solution is compromising, bro. Because sometimes I don't want to, bro. I be ready to dick at somebody. You know how I get, bro. Sometimes I just be ready to dick at somebody, bro. But then I be like, bro, this might not go nowhere, man. You still got to show some growth in different areas, right? It's already, sometimes your image is aggressive enough that you got to be able to lighten shit.
Okay, cool. One key point I can tap into on like the intimacy, relationships type shit. You have wants and needs. Some people don't compromise on this shit, right? But I feel like even going back to Kevin Samuels' approach, you take the best deal at the best moment. You feel me? You don't always. Some people feel like if they don't get that particular person that they want to do the particular things they need and want them to do, then they don't get into those type of relationships at all. Whether it's a friendship, whether it's intimacy, whatever the case is. And at that type of perspective, you stunt your growth, right? So you take the best deal possible for you at that correct time. And just because you have a foresight of what you're worth maybe later or potentially, that don't mean that's what you're worth right now. This relationship might be a building block. But if you don't have building blocks, how you going to get to that ultimate relationship? You know what I'm saying? When you get to that shit, you ain't gonna know what to do with it because you had no experience prior to that. So I'm real big on that. Like, deal or no deal. That's life. You know what I'm saying? I don't know how old y'all are. I don't know if y'all watch that show. Feel me? I don't know how many millennials watching. Feel me? But that's life. That's life for sure. You take the best deals at the right moments. Even if that's not your ultimate deal that you got in mind.
I mean, yeah. Another thing when it comes to deals and situations, is sometimes that's only that deal as of right now. Sometimes you take the smallest bites to get to the bigger pieces. Because sometimes you take the biggest piece and realize, damn, I should have got the smallest thing and work from there. What's one of the major things that artists go through? Being independent or being under somebody's label. That's one of the biggest things, right? One of the main freedoms you have as an independent artist, guess what? You can release as much music as you want. But when you're signed, they're gonna review your stuff. Hey, it got to go past this. It got to get past this. It got to get cleared from this. Like, you got to go through so much clearance. But at the same time, they break you a bigger check. You have a bigger position. You have leverage and stuff. Like I said, you got to know when to do these type of things when it comes to compromising, right? Situation we was in, right? We had some people that wanted to sign us on under management when we was younger, right? We was just like on some like, yo, let's just stay independent, but at the same time, it made sense for us to sign because we're like, bro, we really don't know the game, even though somebody's teaching us the game. But this individual is focused on his artist and his business to a point he can't pour into us. You know what I'm saying? And like I said, they might have been taking a cut from us that we might not have liked, but as I look back, I'm like, bro, we should have just took that deal and see what it ran with. So, but like I said, we were just on a different level at that time, right? You'll get told so much like, yo, being independent is the best route. Sometimes it's not, but sometimes it is. It's how you negotiate your deals and your leverage. You have my boy Pusha T said on the track, he said, I'm 80-20. Why would I ever 50-50? You ain't half of me. He let you know, like, hey, you can have 20%, but that's it. So he still got all his things that's going in place for him to leverage out how much money he get and what he can maneuver.
Right, correct. Push and pull mentality. 50 Cent gave a great example. Gillie the Kid, he was like, yo, he was willing to not sign dude to G Unit, but he was willing to walk him in the door, walk him into the record label.
I remember that
story. Right? He wasn't gonna get $1 million deal, but he would get a deal. And 50 was like, I will promote his project like it's one of my own. I'll stand behind it. I'll produce it. Only thing you got to do, Gillie, is just show up, sign paperwork, boom. Let's think longevity-wise. Gillie said, look, if they don't give me $1 million, I ain't fucking with it. I know my worth. Didn't take the deal. Feel me? Dude never blew up in the rap game.
Never.
Can't give me one single, one album, one nothing.
Man, I ain't never do one single, bro.
Now he podcasting. That's working for him now, right? But push and pull mentality. You have to know when to do both, right? Just because you know your worth, remember, that's longevity. That's potential. If that's not the reality right now, we have to think in the moment. Work our way to that space to where we can demand what we want. You can't just start some shit just because you have a foresight and then make demands. That's not how life works. That don't work in no type of space. Business, relationships, no space at all. Work your way up to your value that you have in your mind. Then you live that reality. But until you get to that point, you got to be realistic. You got to make the right moves. When people say independency is the best route, that's cute. But a lot of these people that's independent now, they didn't always start off that way. They know that being independent is the best route because that wasn't the route they always chose. They can tell you about the shitty deals and how their careers really started. Right. But we don't have the attention span to get those type of stories from these people. We just see them at their peaks and we think, okay, bet that's the play, that's the move. But you don't know where that person came from. You know what I'm saying? Even Nipsey Hussle had deals in the beginning.
You already know I was about to jump on board Nipsey next.
You know what I mean? So you get the knowledge and the experience in the progression. You don't skip the progression and go straight to the top and the peak. So that's what I got on that.
Man, that was beautiful, man. Like we always talk about when it comes to even this, like knowing your value, right? I be talking to individuals that be talking some good shit in business, bro. And you know, like I said, bro, like in the last couple of years, bro, I really been going back to some old shit I was taught when I was younger that I rejected, but it makes 100% sense. It makes 100% now, right? I heard people trying to leverage situations they have no fucking experience in. I'd be like, bro, this sounds fucking stupid, right? I was telling somebody today, I said, look, I know somebody who was like, I'm going to go give that company a piece of my mind, right? You ever met people who feel like they're going to tell somebody something that it's going to make them fall or crumble and shit, like make them listen to them? I'd be around some of these men, they be laughing their fucking ass off like, bro, did they really just try to step to us like that? But you know what I mean? When you get to a certain position, it's all about composure. So you thinking because somebody didn't react a certain way, you won. No. Soon as you leave, they like, hey, listen, we gonna get this dude at 60. bro, I'm telling you, like, I be laughing like, bro, like, look, if you ever gonna negotiate something, you need to make sure you leverage that shit right. Man, had a friend, right?
Mm.
An independent contractor, right? I got a couple of them. One of my friends was like on some shit, like, bro, I like being independent. I said, cool. What's the next move? He's like, well, look, company's trying to do this with me and they trying to do that. I said, okay, cool, go ahead, make that move. He said, but if I do it, I lose my company. I said, okay, cool. How many contracts have you did before you got to this company? You're like, I did about 15. Okay, how much money did you put was all these different companies that hire able to obtain? Like shit, some of them progress within 15,000. They did 50,000 within the next 30 months. 30, like he was like not 30 months, like he was like 3 months. Like he was breaking it down, his numbers and stuff. I said, cool. If you're willing to lose all this shit, you better leverage what the fuck you have to get your highest position, whatever you can. Don't
Mhm.
fucking take what they throw at you. Nigga, you're independent. But at the same time, go in there with some, this is how many contracts I've done. For this company, they made this. For this company, they made this. This company, they made this. You better go in there like ready to knock some heads off. So when you negotiate that value, then they be like, you know what? Now they're going to compromise. They're like, all right, we wanted to give you this, but what you're displaying right now, you're really valued at this. And then they're like, yeah, this is my value here. You're trying to value me here, but it needs to be higher. So before I sign away, we need to come to a conclusion. They might take a recess and then come back to the board like, all right, we'll give it to you. You know what I'm saying? Because look, every company already has a number in mind what they're willing to give you. It's, are you willing to ask for it? Some people shoot themselves in the foot and just ain't low. I say that.
Cool. Okay. All right. So one of my last points I bring up is the ego.
Right.
I would never demonize the ego 100% because the ego can serve you great purpose. So I'm not gonna say it's all bad. It's good to being egotistical, but one of the cons to it is not being able to know when to compromise it. You feel me? So admitting when you're wrong, right? A lot of times when people, well, first off, being able to conceptualize that you're wrong, you have to compromise their ego, right? We have to dumb that down, dumb down the arrogancy in order to be able to see what's really in front of us. It's a lot of situations that can be solved where compromises can be made on not one side, both sides, two sides, however many sides are involved. What tends to happen is the arrogancy and the ego stops that from happening. You feel me? So even if we talk about war, a lot of people from history to modern day will try to make some type of negotiations prior to bloodshed.
Yep. All the time. Always a negotiation first.
It's prerequisite steps, even in war, before we just get to I'm coming over there and I'm taking that shit.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? It's steps prior to that. So the same thing happens within personal relationships, family spaces, where people just cannot compromise on their own ego to fix a particular relationship. So what I always say is, hey, cool. You make that choice, you fuck up that relationship, you fuck up that bond. Know that, hey, shit, no one knows when someone's time is up. No one knows when you got to pull up to a funeral or pull up to the hospital. Keep that same energy.
Mm.
Feel me? Because thinking longevity wise, the older we get, the more mature we should become. We can't be, they say act your age, not your shoe size. Feel me? These type of things are true. So compromising that ego is important within those particular spaces. But nonetheless, if people just don't have the same value that they once had, cool. Make that tough decision, cut it off, do what you do. But be able to live with those decisions, right or wrong.
Ooh.
So I got on that.
Shoot, man, my ego, anytime I ever experience, like, my ego always says when somebody has done something wrong to me, like, mentally, and sometimes I literally say it out loud, but, like, you got to die on that side. You know what I'm saying? It's like, there's no coming back from that. Something that popped in my mind as you was talking, right? You know the show, my boy Franklin, right?
Mm-hmm.
Franklin was always trying to compromise. Hey, look, we got to be able to do this, guys. Hey, look, always trying to put people ahead, put people on. He started noticing everybody wanted to branch off and do their own thing. Like, nah, man, we need to stay strong as a team. Hey, look, man, something happens. We need to be able to come back together. You know what I'm saying? He also gave them the position of power to start their own. What they always say, people bite the hand that feeds you. Now imagine at your
Hmm.
lowest point when you got people to their highest point.
Hmm.
They not there no more.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? You got to be able to read those situations and walk away from them. And you can't feel bad when it happens, right?
Hmm.
But these are situations we go through with family members, friendships, even business partners that were good for X amount of time, and then
Hmm.
you see them turn bad. But you feel like since we did business so well for the past, let's maybe we can clean this up. Like sometimes you gotta be able to cut your losses, right? That's why when somebody asks me, yeah, what is your pitch when you do things for people? I'm like, look, I do favors, I collect favors. I understand some business will be an ends to a means. I say, but I love genuine relationships. It's just all
Hmm.
about what I need to decide as I'm talking to you, what's going to be best for us. You know what I'm saying? Because everybody wants to know what you pitch. So I just pitch up on those guidelines.
My
Yeah.
last plug in on that is you have intent and then you got the action. When we talk about being right or wrong within like a relationship space, a lot of times we can't really depict what's right or wrong because even though an action is taking place, we don't know the intent behind the action. You feel me? Like, let's say, you know what I'm saying, you got a friend or whatever, y'all clash for some sort of reason. I could just simply say what that person said or did was wrong. But behind closed doors, I don't know the building blocks that brought them to that particular action. I don't know the intent that they had at the same time. So I can't just say, hey, just because I felt wrong, that that person is 100% wrong for however they acted.
Mm.
This is the maturity, right? This is how you should look at things. Right or wrong is on the scale. Everybody don't see it the same at that particular moment. You feel me? Um, Even with leadership, even
True.
if a leader makes a faulty decision, it don't mean that they intended for things to happen that way. We brought up Franklin. Franklin tried to fix a lot of shit, but he fucked up a lot of times.
Yeah.
So people that was under him felt like, I don't want to be under your tool list no more because you're a faulty leader. But when they step into these positions, then they see, oh, this shit is not what I thought it would be. It's not as easy as I thought it would be. Then you
Hey,
start making mistakes.
hey, look. Guess who was that? Tyreek.
Auntie.
Tyreek
All of them.
experienced that himself. He said,
Oh,
damn, Daddy did this?
right. So yeah, it's easy to judge people's leadership while you're on the outside looking in.
Hmm.
But until you get into their shoes, until you get into those particular spaces, you don't know what it is you would do, and can you live with that collateral damage or not? So
Hmm.
that's my close off on compromise.
Oh, man. I just tell people right now when it comes to compromise, understand what it really means, right? Stop
Mm-hmm.
saying like, "Oh, I'm not going to settle." See, the things that what you
Uh-oh.
settle for can also make you happy, right? I always said, "Look, man." Like I said, I said, "Look, bro, if I can't get 100% out of all these needs I want in a woman, I'll take at least 70 to 60%. You know, I can compromise that, right? It's not that I'm not scared to move around and find the right piece, but at the same time, I mean, I'm in a position I don't want to fucking waste time. Right? I got too much shit going on for myself alone, right? Even when it comes, like I said, for individuals, like I said, uh, I sent you the other day. They said, what did I say? A man can have all the qualities and characteristics a woman want, but they don't like in one area, right? I sent you that meme, right? That little post. It's like, damn, so he opened your doors, cook for you every day, put money in your pocket, cleaned your house, and bathed your dog, washed your car, and he's your ex. Why? He wasn't cute enough. So I'd be like, yo, sometimes what you compromise on, you really miss something out that was really good at the same time. Some people really take those experiences just to say they experienced it, but they don't want to keep it because it's with that individual they're not really gets attracted to. I mean, I'm past the. I mean, look, bro. Like, just getting the experience just to get the experience is kind of stupid at this point. I'll be honest.
I would say like, okay, cool. 70% can be somebody's bargaining ratio. Know
Yeah.
your bargaining ratio. But I would say like, if you never had 50% or 80%,
Hmm.
how would you know what 70% is? It's based on perspective and not the actual experience of anything.
Hmm.
So a lot of people, when they use the word settle, it's like,
It's a
how are you
bad.
settling at this particular moment when the experience don't match the word?
Mm-hmm.
If the only time you settle is when you've already had more than what's on the table. That's not settling if you never had what's on the table.
Exactly.
You feel me? So that's
Hey.
why I always tie into the experience and making the best choice at that right particular moment. Feel me? So a lot of times within today's culture, that word settle is getting a lot of negative, whatever. Social media, I don't know if it's social media.
Right.
People want to portray things that they not, portray images that's not true to their character, their bank accounts or whatever. Competition. I don't know what the fuck it is, but people are not making realistic choices. I feel like we'd have more solid relationships, friendships, families, business aspirations, and opportunities if people just simply tone down, pipe down, be realistic, and make smart decisions, which would include compromise.
All right, man. That was beautiful. All right. Catch y'all next week, folks.
All
I
right.
didn't even say that, but yeah, like, all right, okay.
But yeah, most definitely. We can close off on that one. Make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel, Talking That Talk official podcast. Follow the IG as well. We'll open up the Q&A for about 15, 30 seconds. Request to go live. And we
Okay,
out.
okay. Q's and A's. Put your questions in the Q box. Request to go to live over the subject.
Yeah,
And let's get it going. We'll leave it up for the next 30, 60 seconds.
cool. Comment on maybe some things that you feel as though you would or wouldn't compromise on. However you want to do it.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm gonna ask you the magic question, man. What's your takeaway before we close out?
Oh, man. I did what I was supposed to do. You know how they go. Like, I mean, I did what I was supposed to
Hey, look. So in other words, you ain't gather shit.
do.
Waste my fucking
I
time.
think I think you ain't learned shit.
Right. In other words, goddamn.
But no, like on the serious, my takeaway for the episode is like really
Mm,
understanding. Like I said, I reread the definition today, and I was just going through some different things in my mind. I was like, okay, cool. Like we really understand compromise, the give or take, the negotiation, the agreements and stuff. You really understand like the purpose in it to actually move forward. It's not how people portray it as something negative when it comes to
mhm,
settling. Like that's why it's mind blowing
mhm,
nobody will settle, but bro, to compromise is one of the key things. Like for me, my three C's, like when I look for in a woman, is can she be cooperative, can she compromise, and can she also be, to a certain point, content with what's going on. Why do I say content? Because life is damn near a routine. It's a routine after a certain period of time on an everyday basis, depending on how your lifestyle is. If you're never content, then it's like you can never be satisfied. So that's just my
man.
look.
One thing I slide in this whole narrative of black people being kings and queens. I
Oh,
enjoy the narrative. I enjoy the narrative, especially coming from a group of people that didn't always have something to connect with that was prideful, right? But at the same time, not everybody comes from lineages of kings and queens just because you're black. Some people come from farmers. Some people come from people that was in the working class.
working class.
So
Yeah.
I like the fact that it motivates some of us to think it on a higher level, but at the same time, it could cripple some of us a lot of times because we using these titles, we thinking within these particular spaces, and sometimes compromising in the right situation get thrown off the table because we're using words like king and queen, God, goddess, and all this shit. So
Mm.
still got to be realistic with life. You feel me?
Oh man, why you do that, man? I'm trying to be on YouTube for a while, Instagram for a while, man.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Oh man, but yeah, like I said, that's true. I remember having
Mm,
that discussion with
mm,
somebody. I said, do you feel like you was a direct descendant from a king? Are you like, he's like, yes. I like, so were you actually like a concubine, or you was actually part of the royalty? You know what I'm saying? So to them, like he had to think about it because they get so caught up in their mind about it, right? You know what I'm
mm,
saying? Like when we used to rap, I used to say, well, you say you're a king and queen, but you never experienced a royalty check. Like, where's
mm,
the royalties
mm,
at?
mm,
You know what I'm saying? You can't you can't be a king and queen and be have that's the whole other thing, man. I ain't the whole other thing, man. But yeah, but it's a lot of truth to that, man. Like I always say, like rise yourself up to a kingship level and understand where you're going, right? I still like to think of myself as a man, but I might put myself in a godly state manner, meaning I might ask myself, how would a God move? Not necessarily calling my God, but you would have to lay out and think, what would they actually do? Like, what have you seen that was portrayed in movies, or what's your imagination takes you on how they would move, right? Because you got to remember, where there's love, there's still hate. Every God was loved and hated at the same time. So,
All right,
that's my shit.
cool. We can close out on that one.
All right, man. We'll catch you next week.
Yeah, next week, man. We can do this again next week, man.
All right, y'all. Pleasure talking to y'all. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe over the subject as we continue to give you this quality content.